Uh, in your Leighton Flowers debate, you ask him if he uses the same methodology to exegete his beliefs regarding man's ability to respond to God's call with other doctrines, and his response was no. I would love to, I assume, know what methodologies you referred to and how you knew his were different here. Well, the reason I knew that his were different there is because I have defended. Okay, there's only a certain way to defend the Trinity and the deity of Christ within non sacerdotal systems. In other words, Roman Catholics, and this drives me crazy, it's one of the most offensive things that I hear Roman Catholic apologists say. I struggle greatly to keep myself in control. Roman Catholics will frequently say that there's no way that you could ever defend the Trinity, the person, the Holy Spirit, things like that. So I know that Leighton Flowers, as a Southern Baptist, I know what he professes to believe based upon the Baptist faith and message. And I know how it's defended. And therefore, I know that the hermeneutical methodology that he and I both would have to use to come to the conclusions that we do on the doctrine of the Trinity is not the hermeneutical methodology he's using to respond to issues relating to the nature of man. The presentation he had made about, unfortunately, not Romans 9, but his particular view of the autonomous nature of man. And so I think that is a fatal flaw. I think once you start using a different methodology of interpretation, that is the greatest way to recognize the intrusion of tradition into what you claim is biblical teaching. So that's why I asked the question, and I appreciated the honest answer. I've been told, I mean, there is no way that I can keep up with the number of people who respond to things that I say on this program. I literally would never be able to do anything positive ever again. Positive in the sense of writing, research, sermons, anything. I wouldn't be able to do it. So there's all sorts of people. The oneness Pentecostals will respond to what I just said, and King James only guys. I've got a clip. I'm not going to play it this time. We probably need to do a little more testing to see, but I've got a new King James only numerology clip. As soon as I play that, they'll respond. The Roman Catholics are all up in arms about daring to point out what church history actually teaches in regards to Mary. And they all are going to put out their videos and their debate challenges and all the rest of that kind of stuff. That's just the nature of things today. And so I have heard that Leighton has said, well, you're making too much out of what I said, and has tried to tweak his response to that. But I think it's self-evident that there is an external, I would call it tradition, theological position, that is driving how he interprets the text of the Bible on this matter. And that's the problem. That's what I said to Dave Hunt long ago. He called this a debate. It wasn't a debate. I was actually filling in for the afternoon drive time host on a local Christian radio station. And so I was interviewing Dave Hunt about an article he had written against Calvinism. This is before he wrote What Love Is This? And in fact, he said that interview was important in his writing, What Love Is This? But as I attempted to deal with the dearly departed Dave Hunt on John chapter 6, when he gave an answer to one of the verses in John chapter 6, my response to him was, Dave, that's your tradition speaking. That's not what the text says. And his response to me was, James, I have no traditions. James, I have no tradition. There are a lot of people who think they don't. Everybody does. And I've been saying for 20 years now, because this I think was in 2000, may have been 99, but 2000. Anyone who says they don't have traditions is a slave of their traditions. The less you recognize your traditions, the more you're enslaved to your traditions. And that was certainly the case with Dave Hunt. And that is the case with Leighton Flowers as well. He has a very, very, very strong commitment to what I think is a fundamentally unbiblical view of man. And that determines the methodology of interpretation he's going to utilize. So that's what I was referring to there. I think he would recognize the validity of if I were to lay out a historical grammatical understanding of hermeneutics, he'd have a hard time arguing that. He'd have a hard time arguing against that. He'd say, oh, that is how we should do it. But does he do so consistently is the question.